All right, stream is up and recording is up. Let's do this. All right, hello everyone. Haven't seen everybody in a while. I'm Rodin. Again, welcome to Blue Horseshoe Club, episode 8 now. So we're back on track. We got some updates coming up and definitely want to discuss some current events as well. And we're joined today by Caleb, still managing SEC Lounge, and then is helping to grow a decent sized alliance in Albion.
My Albion activities, people will have to follow on the Albion show.
There you go. And also, we're joined today by Apoth, back to the land of the living after helping out with the broadcast for the Alliance tournament. Looking so tired with your tweets there, man. I'm glad to have you back. All right, awesome. So what's everybody been up to? We haven't had a show for a while. We reached that lull, and everyone kind of dispersed, and the Alliance tournament happened, and now that's done, and we're all back to normal. Me personally, I haven't been doing a whole lot of stuff besides faction warfare stuff. Faction warfare is really kicking off pretty actively in my time zone, at least. A lot more fights, a lot more engagements. Structures being like blowing up is pretty awesome, to be honest. I think the low sec people, the faction warfare people, finally figured out you gotta attack the fortizars first before you can attack the system. So that's good. That's what I've been
and you're getting some new paper thin structures to shoot down soon.
Soon, we'll see, man. I am really excited about it, but at the same time, it looks like it's gonna be cheap enough to keep cycling through them from a material construction perspective. From what what I'm being told from NCC, they don't cost that much material wise to build. So,
but we have to wait and see where the actual assets, the raw materials, are going to land, because they're going to start moving a lot, right? Because it's a demand that's going to be astronomical, because it also kind of takes over a lot from traditional mining minerals.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, hopefully it's not too cheap. Hopefully it has some value behind it.
Well, I think the numbers are going to most likely hit the cheap side, right? So that would be the lower end of a hut, right? An Astro Hoots.
Yeah, hope so. Besides that, what else have you been up to in game, man? Your fund items, I guess.
I've just been working on the fund and planning on positioning some speculation, but then I just got hit from left field by this whole speeded up cadence from CCP. It's like, that's like, what, 3 months early, and I was actually planning on slowly buying stuff. Now I'm kind of in the position where most of it is going to be a little bit too late until at least things settle.
Yeah, it's true. All right, Path, how about you? What you been up to?
I started going on fleets for the first time in a couple months.
What?
Like 2 or 3 days ago. So that's been cool. I sorted out all my stuff in all the deployment zones PL have. I've never had to have so much stuff ready to go in PL, so there was a fairly large ISK investment. So I'm pretty much broke now, especially in terms of assets, given how cheap Titans are compared to when I bought mine.
Yeah, they have been cheaper. I've been hearing some kind of like nonchalant Titans just dying out there, just being AFK. Like, what? Why are people AFKing in this thing? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they're like half the price they used to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's nuts. I mean, I don't think that's a. Well, it's kind of weird, right? Because that's a matter of overproduction, not necessarily material cost. So.
Well, I think the material cost hit it pretty hard, man. Like, I think to say material cost has nothing to do with it is something of a strong statement. Like, Titans have been in the game for a pretty long time now, And sure, they were slowly getting cheaper, but the Rorqual changes and just the pure amount of minerals people started dumping into the market, that really, really like accelerated the process.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a nice side effect, but at the same time, I think it happened a bit too quickly.
And then because there's not a lot that takes these things out of the game, right? Rorquals maybe, but in general, supers and titans, they don't really die fast enough compared to how fast they are built.
I mean, PL are currently 0 days without accident.
Nice.
That's our IRC message today. At current moment, 0 days without accident.
Is it in an MOTD thing, so it gets reset when?
That's legit, though, man.
It's not there 100% of the time. It's just a bit of a joke based on the events of the last 24, 48 hours.
I can see that thing hanging on the wall. Days since last loss.
Yep. A Cthulhu graphic in there.
Yeah, I don't know the story of what happened, but somebody lost a rag to a Fortizar or something.
Yeah, that was the guy that was slow boating while he was watching Game of Thrones, right?
I think he's lost like 4 Titans at this point.
And
if you can nonchalantly lose 4 Titans, either Titans are too cheap or you are dropping way too much real life money in this game.
Or both.
Yeah, both probably.
What's the price tag on a fully fitted, proper fitted Titan these days? 150, 200 billion?
Like, try halving that and then going down a bit.
Really?
What? We're below that now?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, a fully fit Titan... I don't know the exact numbers, but think somewhere in the region of 60 to 80, depending on who you're talking to.
See, you were trying to trick me. You were trying to sell me your fucking rag at what, 90?
Thank you very much.
Erebus at 90.
95 actually, and that was when you could still get them for 95. Like that was like fully fit with all the extra fittings PL are supposed to carry around, which helps with the price. But yeah, like nowadays I'd be very lucky to get like 70 for it.
Damn.
That's crazy. I mean, if we can fast forward a little bit and go, okay, the refineries are up, people are moon mining at will, things are dying. Are we expecting more capital ship level engagements in order to threaten each other's refineries, or is that going to be mostly down to subcaps? Maybe.
I think you're going to see Titans fielded a lot more, especially if we end up with a position where sovereignty is really only structure based.
Wow,
I mean, I think it's tricky because there's one side of it which says that the more available something is and the cheaper something is, the more chill people are going to be about using it, right? The first 40 Titans in the game, say, were guarded behind 10 layers of barbed wire and never touch them, never log them in, blah, 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 blah. But nowadays, it's really easy to get your hands on them, especially in the days of renting. So that says they're going to be used more. That, and depending on what the damage caps are like and what the most efficient thing to do is, maybe they'll be used. The other side of that is if you are part of one of the main powers in the game, it is still a case of build up as many supers and titans as you can, and apostles. Well, now, so don't lose them. Don't be stupid with them. Keep them all in one place. Still be super secret with them. So I think it's going to vary in attitude from place to place, especially depending on the age of the alliance. I think the older alliances are going to still be much more, be super fucking careful, don't do anything dumb, blah, 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 blah. And the newer alliances who are getting them cheap and aren't necessarily part of that capital arms race as much can afford to be a little less risk averse with them. But I think it'll very much depend on the personality of the person flying it.
Yeah, but I think from a strategic point of view, that was kind of where I was going with that. I think they will be used more. I don't know if it's a good parallel or comparison, but if you talk about something like tanks, right? And how armored tank warfare, you still have the escalation, you still have the positioning, just like you have with Titans in Eve now. But there's also the utility of rolling a tank into to smash a city, right? Or a village and stuff like that. I think that's where I'm seeing this moving or trending towards. I'm thinking someone like Roden that runs around and takes down structures, primarily in high sec, right? Well, it would, if that was in, say, low sec and of course null sec, he would have a Titan to actually help take these things down and just clear them like a demolition crew, right?
Well, I think it's tricky, and it depends on what the most efficient way to take down capitals are, and assuming that rolling tanks in and blowing someone's stuff is structure based rather than sov-wanding based, which I think is probably fairly accurate. I mean, if we look at the Northern Kerfuffle, it wasn't really a war,
Is
so
that
let's
an
call it the
official
Northern.
name?
It is now the Northern Kerfuffle.
That's
Goons
legit.
did not bring their super capital force. They did, however, bring however many hundred dreads. This did not mean that PL and NC and whoever else could not use their super capital force. It meant that if they did use their super capital force, they had to use it all, right? You couldn't. You had to be very careful about YOLOing around one Titan or two, because goons will drop you with 100 dreads and that Titan's dead. So it didn't give them the capital advantage. It just meant that whenever the northern guys dropped the hammer, they had to drop the entire hammer at once. They only gave them one play as such in terms of using a certain amount of their super capital forces, because the threat of the dreads there meant that you couldn't have like one or two supers doing something off somewhere without the rest of the fleet there with them.
So I just kind of want to. I just kind of want to pick it. I'm curious because I'm not a capital pilot or anything. But are we in a position where dreads kind of like you will win or lose by virtue of your dreads? Are we in that state?
No. I'm fairly convinced, and I'm really not an expert on this. A better person to be talked to would be someone like Doom Chinchilla. But I reckon you win or lose dependent on how many apostles you have, because the current meta has turned out to be you drop all your supers and your titans, and you drop infinity apostles, and you can only start killing supers and titans until after you have killed all of their apostles, right? So you just drop a shit ton of apostles, which are just there to ret the supers, and you can't kill the supers until all the apostles are dead. So one of the things we haven't seen um, yet since the capital changes are two major powers really going at it with super capital forces. So yes, it is true. Again, yes, it is true that you'll have to burn through someone's apostles. But if you drop all of your apostles at once to the same sino, 4 titans come in and I don't know, Lance DD them, and they all die from AOE DDs. So it's so I personally have no idea what that fight is going to look like, but I think that a huge part of it is going to be based on how efficient each side is and how fast each side is at burning down the other's apostles. Because remember, you are taking fire from their entire super capital fleet until their apostles are down, which means that you have to be losing your own apostles at the same time. And there's counterplay between, like if you've got super carriers in, then you're trying to defang each other, and you've got fighter wars going on. Titans are DDing and cap gunning things. So I think that dreads will obviously be a significant part of that. You'll be throwing as many dreads as you can to get your hands on to burn down the apostles as fast as you can. But I don't think dreads are the key thing to look at as to whether or not you're winning a fight. It's how many apostles do you have on field and how many do you have on standby to keep bringing in, to keep going and keep providing that meat shield, as it were, for the supers and titans.
Wow. Do you think the changes to moon mining and the refineries and how that first initial scramble, I think once that settled down, do you think retaking moons, etc., is going to be enough of a motivator to actually promote cap fights of that scale, you think?
I mean, I kind of have this assumption that may be very, very wrong. Because again, I really don't know about any of this stuff. I'm not a high level nullsec diplo or FC guy. I'm just a line member in that regards. I reckon what's probably happened already is that all the people who own the space where all the moons are have already made agreements. Is that okay? We get all of these moons of a certain quality in this area. You will have all of these moons of a certain quality. So that all that remains is scanning them down and distributing them as to a pre-made agreement. Like, that's my assumption. I think that some people fight over some in certain places, but I'm assuming that by and large, agreements have already been made as to kind of who gets what and where, with it just being we know who gets what share of everything, we just don't know which specific moons are where yet. I think the only difference to that might be if there is a significant gradient in quality of region. So, for example, Providence becomes the best fucking moon place in the entire game, right? Like, there's just no competition. Providence is the place to be for money moons. Then a huge war will kick off. But as if it's roughly evenly distributed and there's no kind of huge motivator to have a region over there another, I think it will just be distributed according to agreements that have probably already been made.
I'm pretty sure that this ties into the comment that Aerith made on the Meta Show, talking about CCP Neural. The fact that you have someone that actually thinks about the meta, all these layers higher than CCP traditionally have been doing, according to some voices or opinions. But the point I'm trying to make is that I don't think CCP is going to make the same mistake as they have in the past of flattening out space and making everything even, or making, say, one region more valuable than another. I think they are going to mess things up and mix it up, and I think you're going to see something that have not been in EVE since, well, maybe since like 2006 or earlier, right? The fact that you have differences in raw materials actually available in each region and system. And I think you're going to get a lot of chaos implemented from these things. I think that's really the thing I'm taking away from seeing what CCP are doing now. They're not necessarily adding the depletion that Dirk and myself have been ranting on for months and months on end, but they're adding something that's kind of in the same realm. They're adding differences, right?
I mean, I think the gradient to which certain bits of space are better than other will affect the height to which these conflicts are taken. So if it's a low level gradient, so some places are better than others, but it's not, worth deploying 100 billion ISK of fuel to deploy. It may be a case that one corporation in alliance with one constellation and one corporation in an alliance in another constellation go, hey, their constellation is better than ours. Now, alliance said, we want some of their stuff. And the other corporation goes, hell no, this is our constellation. We just got lucky. Deal with it. We don't want to give it up. So there may be like internal alliance drama caused there.
But
If
it's
the
also
gradient is steeper than that, then it may go up to the alliance level, where alliances in a coalition go, hey, this region is sucky compared to this other alliance's region. And when the agreement was made to who gets what region, then this is now unfair and this needs to be renegotiated. And the alliance who gets the better region may say, hey, this is how things turned out. Sucks to be you. And then if it's really, really steep, it may go all the way to the coalition level, where it's like one coalition has a ton of shitty space, and I don't know, the DRF have all the best moons in the game, then a huge invasion happens. So I think
but you're
how
leaving
steep
out
the gradient is going to affect how high in terms of levels of organization that conflict happens.
But that, I think what I'm trying to point out is that in the past, those gradients or those nominal valuation things were kind of static and flat, right? Now they will definitely not be flat, right? Because they're going to be tied in directly to things like productivity, population composition, flavor of the month, market movements and valuations. So you might have a lot of R64 moons or moon materials, right? And that means that you're valuing it high because that's rare. But the fluctuations and the movements of the other things that is composed in that, say, constellation, that's not static anymore. It's going to be very dynamic, and it's going to be potentially extremely sensitive to things like the new rebalancing of ships, how much time strain is there going to be on things like processing all the moon materials. What's the structural real estate demands to actually do this? What's the logistic demands? There's going to be so many variables. I'm still on the argument that CCP are now adding too many variables for anyone to easily calculate things in a long-term perspective. It's going to be extremely sensitive to changes and activities by the players.
I think this is true, but I think that EVE is a game of fucking nerds, so they will find some way to simplify and approximate the value of specific areas and assign based on that. And that might change between alliance to alliance depending on what their speciality is. And I think that I do agree that there will be some level of chaos. I just think that that level of chaos will be pretty much tied to the how variable space can be. I unless it's absolutely insane, I don't see the face of nullsec being changed instantly by this change. It maybe slowly long term, but unless it's absolute fucking madness, I'm not expecting a war to kick off, in the second week of this expansion.
No,
where
that's not really what I'm saying.
where Guardians of the Galaxy invades DRF or whatever.
I was trying to explain this to Eric Ashmock on the Whiskey Gaming Show, and I know that you're a math buff, so you will most likely understand where I'm coming from with this. I was trying to explain to him the point that just from the perspective of something like active miners, it used to be a two position pendulum swing, right? It was ice or minerals. So basically, you could seesaw back and forth between these two, according to what prices were doing and efficiency of your skills and local needs and stuff like that. But the point is that it was still only two positions. With moon mining now being added to the mix, it is a 3-point system. You have three pendula linked together, and that this actually creates chaos naturally. Because you cannot predict
but I think that people
where people
calculate
are going to move.
it with respect to probably maximums and averages, right? Simplify it to, okay, what is the maximum possible output of this place? What is the average possible output of this place? And I think that people will, as they do everywhere in the world, they will do their best to simplify as much as possible how you calculate valuation in terms of practical use, and then in terms of once it's distributed, do as much a sensitive analysis as possible, more particular analysis on how to get the most out of the space they end up with.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm just pointing out that the mere chaos introduced by having three choices for your miners is going to impact that you will no longer see the easy ebb and flow where it's ISIS now flavor of the month, and then you're going to wait until that actually gets supplied enough to then tank, and then everyone shifts to minerals.
Well,
you're no longer going to see that because the chaos implied by having three choices means that there will be different times when players move from one to the other. And this is going to be sensitive to their skill sets, their invested time, their local space, and all these factors that you cannot easily crunch.
Well, that leads you back to the joke about the physicist, right? Like, why can't physicists ever have threesomes? Because they can't handle three-body systems. Going from a system with two fairly complex variables to a system with three relatively complex variables is one hell of a thing, generally speaking. But I still think that just to keep alliance leaders' brains from exploding, they're going to simplify it and they'll go, okay, this is what you get, this is what you get, this is what you get. You can do what you like in your space, but this is what you're fucking getting. Stop being a little bitch. And that itself can cause conflict and internal drama. But I think I'm looking to see more internal drama than coalition versus coalition drama unless the variability of space is absolutely extreme.
I'm personally just waiting for 2 features from CCP, which I hope they eventually are going to get around to introduce.
You've been saying that for like 10 years, though, right?
Well, primarily right now, I would say that to make sovereignty mean something, they need to add a soft tax, right? A flat soft tax that you can't change depending on who's using it. It's going to be the same for all the people in the space that you own, right?
But is that going to be introducible by players because refineries are going to have a log or something?
Well, I would put it in so it's every transaction that's public. So similar to how you have taxation in HiSec with the faction tax, right?
I mean, this is all very much a PvE part of the game, which I know basically nothing about.
Well,
so
it's not really
listening should be taking my views with a grain of salt.
Well, it's the sales tax, right? If the sales tax was customizable by the sovereignty holding entities, that would mean a whole new reason for actually holding sub, especially with all these structures having activities and potentially having public or semi-public activities running, right? But the second one, I think, it's not that it's
but how many entities do business in places that isn't their own sov? Like all the people doing stuff that would be taxed in Imperium space are people in the Imperium, right?
Yeah,
So
of course, that's citizens.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure what your point is, but I feel
my point is that you should not be able to. My point was that you should not be able to change it or set it in on an individual level for each group. So it should be for everyone using it, regardless of whether they're neutral or blue.
I mean, I'm not an economist, so I really don't have like I don't know is the only answer.
The point is that to have a governing body, you need to have a tax, right? And making that easier is definitely something that would motivate people to actually have and hold sovereignty and nurture it and keep developing it. But the second part is that I strongly believe that we need a proper real estate feature contract-wise, so you can contract structures easily to whoever wants to actually buy it.
If you say so, buddy.
No, because if you think about it, right, systems are going to be valued by the structures that are in it. So you have to start having something to indicate the real estate value, and that's not going to be the same in all systems. Say an Astrahus is not going to be valued.
Sure, but I would assume that people have already done that. Like, oh, hey, like people exchange buildings all the time. Like we see it a lot when people move supercapital forces. Like if they don't place a line of Astrahuses to jump to and from themselves, they, go, hey, we want to buy this Fortizar from you in this system or rent it from you and just have it under our name for this amount of time. Like I think
the point is that it needs to be on some sort of easy to visualize and potentially introduced into the API, so you can actually pull these things, so you can see things like real estate value in different regions and see how prices are actually developing.
I'm assuming that the more complex entities do that manually themselves. Like whenever CCP don't make tools for something, players make the tools to do it if it's important, and especially if it's a way for them to make money. So I'm assuming people are do that manually. Like making that easier, sure. Making it more accessible, sure. But
and transparent for people that do not have access to these advanced tools out of game or to the organizations that are now servicing it. This is an old story, and it's kind of one of the things that, and now I'm just going to segue a little bit back to Nawal. One of the things that Nawal and Quant talked about was adding things like collateralized loans, right? And this is a feature that has been running and managed by players. And if you add that as an actual contract type into the game, you're going to make it so much easier for people.
Yeah. It'll become much more widespread, certainly.
And again, that takes us into one of the things that we kind of had in the show notes that's not actually written, but Roland and I was talking about the thing that we're now actually getting a market ticker in the client.
It's cute, but I don't know how useful that's gonna be.
and that's the joke, right? In the SEC lounge with all the traders, there's like this overall attitude of, okay, who asked for this?
Yeah, it's like,
did anyone
yeah,
actually
you're right,
need
yeah,
this
yeah,
or want this?
wanted this shit. Well, the first I heard of it was actually in the CSM Discord, and I was like, did they just steal that from dang the Lone Wolf? That's what I was thinking immediately. It's like, oh man, they totally stole that shit.
Well, it's a nice little visual thing, and it's certainly fluff, and of course, it does actually have some use. It's just that, is it really a quality of life thing? Does it really change anything?
No, it doesn't do anything, man. I mean, it's like, and you mentioned this too, and I don't know if Apothony you've noticed kind of things like these in the systems that you may be engaged in, but at least on the market people end, it seems like we get things that we don't actually need or ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
And the things that we need and ask for, we have to come up ourselves.
I mean, I think that's true for a lot of different areas of EVE.
That's true, man. Well, we'll see. I mean, hopefully they can use that maybe as a jumping point for delivering other types of information down the line. Kind of like how we've seen the evolution of, what are they calling it? The resource war and the pirate forward operating basis that's coming up in the fall updates. I imagine this was all born tech-wise from the seasonal PvE items that we saw throughout the years, throughout the different times in the year. So it's nice to kind of see a more established version of it, I guess. And
I think part of it is to the like the Blood Raider stuff down in Delph, and I think that Team Phenomenon do a pretty fucking awesome job with their work. Like, I just wish they had like 1,000 more people on Team Phenomenon, so we could get more and more of this really cool stuff. Like, it is very rare for me to see things coming in the game that feel space opera. Is the only way I can really put it. And while there's kind of that initial problem with using sig tanking punishers to run the Blood Raider sites, like in terms of what PvE in Eve should look like from a guy that doesn't do PvE, I think that stuff like the Blood Raider Certios, for example, is like, yes, this is an amazing future of PvE inspired by game design historically, but done in a new way, and isn't just go to a place, shoot rats in a predetermined fit, in a predetermined way, in a predetermined everything. Like, people will still solve the system, but I think that having things where you still have to make decisions and really pushing players is amazing, and I'm really hoping that they get to send that AI they've been developing and expand that style of PvE they're developing throughout more of the game as soon as possible.
Yeah, I can't actually make any kind of comparison to that delivery system with any other, not even just MMOs, but just game in general. So it's pretty unique, at least from my gaming experience.
I think what I find very interesting when it comes to the whole AI, I'm a little bit underwhelmed at what we saw with the Blood Raiders, but
well, that was their first big test, right? It's something they're still developing.
Oh yeah. I'm just pointing out that that's one of those oversights where you just go, okay, that you should have been able to figure out that they were going to game your system and come up with.
Well, of course, the players are going to game the system. It's just that how are they going to game the system?
How they're going to do it.
Yeah, it was not easy to predict, but I hope that they at least figure out how to fix these things. So there's always going to be dynamic changes to how the AI actually responds.
Yeah,
so you can't just
one of those things where
come up with a solution.
Because Eve is a game that people solve, it isn't a thing where, okay, we have made this thing and we now need to not, and now we don't have to touch it for 5 years. Like, so many systems in Eve need a constant guiding hand to rebalance, not because it's necessarily imbalanced, but because certain things need to stay fresh and changeable, such as PvP ship balance, things such as resource distribution, in order to keep there being a reason for conflict. Like as soon as Eve settles down, then something needs to fundamentally change a lot of the time, just to keep things fresh and to keep things moving.
Which is kind of the job of Fozzie in the past, right?
I think saying that's the job of Fozzie really oversimplifies it. Fozzie is the face of many things.
I mean the nerf bat and the boost bat, right? That
to what specifically?
Well, it's a ship balancing, right? Where he
Yeah,
goes
so
in and then he just shifts
specifically in
one
the
thing up
case
and
of
one
ship
thing down.
balancing, that's always something CCP Fozzie has definitely been involved in. He's certainly not the only one. I know that Larkin has done some ship design. I know that Rise has done a whole lot of ship design, although that was quite a while ago. He's done a bunch of other things now, although he may be in the New Balance team, maybe. I mean, I hope he would. He'd certainly be a candidate that I'd want on there based on my knowledge of devs. But it's not just ship balance, right? It's like the sovereignty system needed to change, not just because it was bad for certain reasons or it caused certain gameplay, just because it was old. Like it needed a new system just for the sake of having a new system. Like Aegis is better than Dominion, if for one reason, just because it's not Dominion. Like even if it was a overall worse system, even if that's what people think, one of the things in the pro boxes is that it was different and it forced people to figure a whole bunch of new things out, to fight in a new way, to think about things in a new way, and that in and of itself is a good thing, even if as a whole people believe that Aegis was bad for the game, which I don't necessarily agree or disagree with. Like just that it was different was an inherently good thing.
How long do you think it'll take for us to start developing hard opinions like that on our current subsystem?
I think a lot of people have had hard opinions since like day 2 of the new soft system. I just
Yeah,
think
but
that
we didn't get the full package though yet, at least.
yeah, I know, but like there's having opinions and those opinions being valid, right?
Sure. Yep.
And I think that one of the things we haven't seen is 2 end level groups have a full on Sov war. Or capital engagement, right? So we've had a couple wars. So we had like the Tribute War, I think was a legit war that existed and happened. It was close for the first while and then it went one-sided. But we haven't seen like a war where the 2 of the biggest organizations in the game are having an existential fight, right? Like the closest thing we had was World War B, but that wasn't really a true war in my mind because, you know, the the coalition of everyone, or whatever you call that side, turned up, won 2 fights, and the Imperium just left. And that we haven't had a war where both sides are really fighting hard and bringing everything they have to bear. And until we see that, I think that there's a lot of assumptions we can make about what that would look like, and many of them may be very, very accurate. But until we actually see it, I think that there will be a bunch of things that even the smartest people in the game, which I am certainly not one of, have assumed to be true and turns out to be false.
Do you think that, kind of big show of force and the short-lived nature of that war is a product of the style of Fozzie?
What do you mean?
I think the problem is that Fuzzysoft combined with...
Please don't call it Fozzie.
Okay, the problem with Aegisov is that combined with infinite resources, right, they broke the game.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a thing I've thought about for a while. So if we go back to pre-fatigue days, you had a power in your super capital force, and you could get that everywhere in the game. So if you think about it as the area which you can cover with your military force versus the area which you have for resources, so the area of your resource base where you built stuff was much smaller than the area at which you could exert influence in a militaristic sense. Moving into fatigue and that kind of stuff, we are now in a place where you are now have a pretty hard limit as to where you can exert the maximum of your force. Like maybe one midway is where you can have short response times and kind of fight a war on. You cannot fight a war from huge groups in like two regions that are 3 regions apart, right? Because you cannot have your entire super capital fleet in both places. But what is also true is that the area required to fund and satisfy the members that you need to support having that super capital fleet and keep those people happy is still smaller than the area that you can cover with the people that area can that area. Sorry, let me restate that. So the current area of your militaristic influence is greater than the area required to fund and maintain that militaristic influence. I think we should hopefully move to a place where the amount of space you need to keep enough players and keep enough resources to fund and make the super capital area required to cover that space, the area of resources you require is always greater than the area of influence you can exert. So say you have a 20-man super capital fleet, right? And that is your force. Let's say theoretically that is good enough to protect 5 systems. I believe a cool place of balance would be, in order to support a 20-man super capital fleet, it required 6 systems to really kind of like keep the players fully funded, keep pumping them out, keep doing what you need to do. So so your needs are always greater than what you have hard control over. Does that make sense?
Pretty much. It's kind of what I've been arguing, that you need to make supers more fuel-based instead of limiting them artificially with something like fatigue.
Well, range is a good way of control. I think it's a good part of the system. Fuel would be really weird, and I don't know what that would look like. But it's like it's to make it to re-clarify my point, to be more centered to the real world. Imagine you have an army with 10,000 men. And an army with 10,000 men can secure England, say, just for the sake of argument. However, to feed and house and support 10,000 men through wages from taxes from civilians, through providing weapons for them, through feeding them, that requires England and Scotland. But in order to take Scotland, you need another 100,000 men. So you're up to a 200,000 man army, and now you have Scotland. However, Scotland only supports 100,000 people. So you now got 200,000 people. So you now need Ireland as well. But to take Ireland, you need more men. So you get more men and you go take Ireland. But now you've got more men which you need to supply. So your needs should always outweigh the amount of influence your strength is. If that kind of is a little bit more sensible.
And I'd like to welcome Apple Pear, because since we're talking about things like supers and titans and capital fights and strategic positionings, and not so much about markets or raw material distribution, I thought we should have another expert, so it's not just Anthony talking about these topics.
The thing I have with Aegis soft, Fuzzy soft, however you want to call it, is what you see at the moment is you don't really have people fighting that soft more than annoy people. What we did in the north is pretty much made timers so people had to defend them, not to take them. Pretty much, the soft game happens after you win the war. Pretty much.
That was true in Dominion though as well, right? You broke the opponent, they left, and then you just hoovered up all their space.
Yeah, and that's still the thing with Aegis soft. I'm less familiar with Dominion. I came in the game in the end of the Dominion soft. I pretty much played most during the Fuzzy soft. Sorry, I have to. I'm so used to calling it that way. But to that area, and I have done a lot of soft warfare, and it's just not fun to do. People don't like the mechanics, how to do it. You don't get kill mills. It's a lot of work, a lot of planning, and it's supposed to bring the smaller groups there. And yeah, you see a bit of smaller groups in certain places, but you see more and more people banding together, making deals not to attack their SOF. And if you have big fights, you saw it in the start of the year with the catch war. All the fights were over citadels, and when all the citadels were killed and people had their force, then they divvied off the SOF.
What was the catch war? Sorry,
the catch war when Test and CO2 took catch, and all Steenwagen got kicked out. Pretty much the war was about who has control over the citadels, and people who have control with citadels and with that way can stage there. After that's done, then people started doing the real soft war and just taking the space that they divvied up. It's not that they do it, get the soft by attacking the soft of using the soft mechanics outside being a nuisance and force people to defend their soft, and because it's irritating, you can do it with low effort.
What because you don't get anything for it, right? You don't really get anything except vanity for soft. To some extent, you get the ability to build supers and titans and whatnot, but that's really a whole different narrative. But I'm just trying to point out that it did get more trolly and more boring after Dominion, right? Ages is even worse when it comes to that, because people don't like it. It's like having a Skinner box where you actually don't get a peanut, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, the only thing that's really of value, especially since Citadels, is the IHOP. So people only form up for the IHOP. They can do it with a simple hacker that goes out 4,000 meters a second, and they sit there for 10, 20, 30 minutes, depending on what your ADM is. And you have to respond every time. And then when you get there, the damn thing cloaks up and you have nothing to shoot. And that happened with the start of the casino war. You say there was not a lot of soft hacking, etc. There was, of course, the whole thing with Space Monkeys Alliance that their soft got attacked all the time. But before that, Moa was the person that all the time made timers in Pure Blind for like 2, 3, 4 months. Did that all the time, just timers making. And then when we came there to defend the timers, they just didn't show up, and just made it as annoying as possible. So all the people were so fed up with all the soft work and how that went before the whole casino war even started. And you see that now also. People get fed up with all the hacking and find ways to make it less painful. And if you really want to attack somebody, you're not going for the soft, you're going for the citadels. And when you kill the citadels, you have control over their soft, and then you can just take it if you want to, and otherwise you don't.
And it's the whole balance problem between simulation and game, right? And it seems as if, to my, this is my personal opinion, I think CCP has forgotten that a complicated game, sandbox-wise, with historicity and stuff like that EVE needs more simulation and less game. And I know that people criticize me and say, well, you're trying to make the game more boring, but something as fundamental as the fact that you don't have anything that's really repaired. Everything is kind of like pushing spacebar to respawn, right? Or you lose it entirely and you need to rebuild it completely. You do not have this middle ground where your structure gets damaged. You actually have to put in some time and effort to repair it. The alternative is to let it die, and then you have to invest more assets and then relaunch it. I think one of the things that I would like to see is that CCP said, okay, we're going to remove hull tanking entirely from the game, and the hull can only be repaired in stations, and it will have a time sink, and it will need fuel that's going to be based value-wise on, say, something in the realm of, say, 50% of the ship's actual build cost, right? So if you need to repair it from scratch up to, from like 1% structure left up to 100%, you actually have to get something like 50 or 25% of the raw material value that's usually used to create that ship. And then you would also have to wait something in the realm of, say, 25 to 50% of the build time of that hull. I think this is the type of thinking that CCP is missing. They do not have the shipyard thing. They do not have the time sink repair. So things do not get strategical enough when it comes to the ISK war.
I don't know about that. That's too complex and okay.
No, but you see the point, right? Because if you had a reason to limp out, and then you couldn't just restage your ship, you actually had to repair it, or you would be at a higher risk to then lose it when you feel it again. This is the type of risk reward planning and strategizing that's not in the game right now.
Yeah, because I think it goes back to kind of how, before you got started was because it's a game. I don't know, I don't think they want to pull the trigger on that because it adds added complexity that may not be appealing, although it would make sense.
The problem is that, again, the game simulation thing, if I want to play a game, right, just a game where I can chill and have good fights, I would not choose to play Eve because it's not good for that. If I want to play Eve, it should be simulation. Of course, it shouldn't be extremely high-level, perfect realism simulation, but it needs the aspects from real life that makes real life work. So when I decide things from a risk-reward estimate, I am using the same logic as I would in real life. And right now, we've moved away from that type of simulation.
I mean, I've kind of hit on this personally on my talks with other people, but yeah, I mean, it's like we're in this like really clumsy part of our time in Eve where it's complicated, but we don't want to make it complicated, and the end result is it's not fun.
Yeah, the point is, and I'm trying to explain this to people when I end up in these discussions, is that it doesn't actually get complicated unless you're trying to do what you do when you play games, where you try to understand everything. You do not need to understand everything. There is no need for Apotheny or Apple to understand the intricacies of high-level speculative markets. There's no need for them to understand these things. And there's no need for me to have fun, to understand anything about what dreads do when you feel them in battle. I don't need to know. I just need to know what the value is and what the repair costs or the raw material composition is going to be, and that's going to influence my gameplay. We do not need to have an Eve where everyone potentially can understand everything. That makes no sense. You should not do that with a simulation-based game.
We'll see, man. I don't know. Hopefully, it gets a little bit more fleshed out once we have all the plethora of structures, so that we can kind of see the bigger picture. I mean,
yeah, of course. It's just that I don't like that CCP are making these game-based nerfs and hack solutions to things that should be resolved with simulation and realism instead. One of the best examples is still the whole jump fatigue, which I find the most lousy, lazy, and stupid solution to a problem that should be tied into the fundamental functionality of Supers and Titans and anything that can basically jump, right?
Yeah, one thing that's important for me and what I want to see happen for the and I hope it happens soon is Citadels need to rework, and I think we need to go to a kind of Citadel soft that, like, there is a Citadel structure that gives you the soft, the IHOP, etc. And then they need to rework the timers a bit, like for the Keepstar, make it three timers and like 6 days between the others. But for the others, like timer 1, timer 2 for Astra houses, and maybe timer 1, timer 2, timer 3 for Fortizars, etc. Make it faster and make it more engaging, because one of the big problems you have now with Citadels is between the second and the third timer is so much time. You lose your whole momentum to keep going with it. So I think they should work something with there, and also make a mechanic that if you have no fuel in your Citadel, you lose one of the timers. So
yeah, and it's a problem because everyone in Eve seemed to agree with this, right? Everyone in Eve that I talked to agree that this is exactly the point we want to get to, where it's say 3, 2, 1 timers, and then the timer size window and all that. Every player agrees, but CCP is still not moving on it. That's really weird. If they wanted them to be able to proliferate and reach a certain number, just make them invulnerable entirely, right? So then change it when you find the number to be right, because this in between where it's breaking gameplay is just horrible.
We'll see. I mean, I totally get the kind of we're living in two different systems. One of them's in Citadel mode, the other one is still in Dominion mode. But yeah, some sort of consolidation of the structures and its functions would be nice. Even from the high sec, war decker perspective, having to run out 2 war periods for a single structure in Empire is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, regardless
totally.
of what asset you're attacking, right?
Yeah, I mean, and more often than not, we're killing. By the time the 3rd timer comes out, I mean, they've already evac'd all their shit. I mean, there's no such thing as getting caught with your pants down in structures. This doesn't make sense.
And because it's so long, sometimes you forget that you have the timer, or you think like, oh shit, we have that timer there also in 30 minutes. We have to do something with it, and you lose the whole momentum, the whole keep an eye on it, etc. And if they do that for a Keepstar and a CTO, I understand. But for smaller things, no, please don't. It's just too.
For me, I just kind of thought this, but it seems like it's a perception of playstyle versus a reality of playstyle. So, Age of Sov would be really cool if anyone ever did when they logged in was PvP, right? So having a timer every 30 minutes meant that 24 hours a day means that whoever of your alliance is logged in and playing the game is covering those timers, and it's just this continuous cycle of timers, right? But that isn't really, to my understanding, how the majority of nullsec inhabitants play the game. They rat and rat and rat and rat, and then on the weekend or in the evenings they have a nice big timer to go to and have a jolly old time. And those are 2 very, very different play styles. So perhaps it's a case of a issue with perception of how people want to play or how people do to play, and the mechanics for Sov not matching up to that. What do you think of that?
I agree with that. I think that's totally true. A lot of people, there are enough people who like to PvP all the time, and I think that's a great place for lowsec and those kind of things. But for Sov, to have to deal with it, depending your ADM all the time, and people can attack the same structure 20 times in the same night, and every time you have to show up again, that's frustrating, and people get fed up with it.
Or perhaps it was designed in expectation of alliances bringing everything they have to bear for every single timer. Like, generally speaking, in Dominion, we have a timer. Here's an op timer. Everyone show up if you can. If you have 20 timers every day, everyone show up 20 times every day. That's not going to happen. Perhaps the idea behind Aegis, and perhaps the hope, would be that it will be smaller groups of people doing one of the timers, and then another group of people do another timer, and just like whenever you're on, if you happen to be around, you do the timer, chill. But every alliance wants to bring as much force as they can for every timer in order to win it, right? So they're pushing their members to be on more and more and more, and that just drains everyone too much. So perhaps a more lackadaisical attitude towards timers in terms of Aegis would help, and that means the more motivated side still wins, but nobody wants to lose. So, in order to be risk averse, you have to get everyone super active all the time, and that doesn't really work. So maybe it's just a game mechanics and perspective and play style not interacting in the optimal way, and maybe that's a fundamental issue.
That's a really good point.
And that was also the problem we had during the Casino War and the months leading up to that. There was so much people doing all the time attacking the Sov. People were so fed up with it, so people were just like, again. And you saw the numbers for the you saw the numbers in fleets for those kind of fleets go down, go down, go down, go down, go down. People were just fed up with it.
Yeah,
I think that's
and
the
it's the
balance,
thing where
right?
there are certain people in Alliance who make stuff happen. So you have a small number of FCs, and historically campaigns have been run by a very, very small group of people. So if you have a shit ton of timers, then that small group of people are playing for a job. And that was like it was before we had all these million timers. So in a Aegis style system, you'd need basically everyone in your alliance to be a competent skirmish FC, right? Everyone needs to do that. But that's not what people want. Like when people come to Eve, I think in terms of people who want to be FCs, who want to be scouts, who wants to be recons, who want to do those kind of key roles versus the people who just want to show up and press a button and be involved in the narrative, that also is very, very different than to what the player base needs to be for Aegis to really shine. So I think that's another example of the perspective of playstyle being different from the reality of people who want to play the game. Like if everyone in the game was like a skirmish FC or a strategic FC, with the most being skirmish FCs, Aegis would be amazing. Like how cool would that be if everyone was just did that all the time and you had like you just had an amount of ISK you had and you didn't ever have to worry about making ISK?
I think you're getting back to the problem that CCP is suffering, right? They have maybe one of the most unique games around. It's not really just a game. It is a persistent simulator in a single shard realm, and then you're going to suffer all the problems that leads onto with people having real life, different motivations to actually play, different time to play, and then of course the fact that the globe is round and that you have different time zones. So you have all these things with speculation in time zone tanking, and then you have seasonality and the summer slump and all these factors that are going to play in to what is going to happen in your game and how you have to design your game. And I still think that CCP is still in the trial and error. They do not have an overall idea or philosophy of how to actually solve this high level, high variable Skinner box problem.
Well, I think that there are two things I disagree with there. Firstly, that saying Eve is not just a game. I think that is false. I think Eve is definitely a game. And it is just a game. But I think that we shouldn't be limiting what we mean by game. Like just a game implies some kind of boundary, some kind of parameter on what a game can be and what this other thing must be. I think that is part of modern media, that games are really are this young art form in the same way the beginning of literature was, in the same way the beginning of film was, and the same way the beginning of TV shows were. And I think that it is definitely a game, and it is beautiful and amazing, and that doesn't stop it, and that doesn't
But
make it
it's
more
very
than a game.
different,
It just makes
Apotny. If
games
you
good.
log out of Eve, the game plays on without you. No, and when you're coming
Sure.
back, it's going to be different. Things can have
True, but
happened
that doesn't
when
stop
you
it
were
being a
not
game. It's just
there.
a game where that is the case.
Yeah, but that's very
And
different
then
from the situation in any other game. In any other game,
that's
when you
true.
come
It is
back,
a
it doesn't
game that
matter.
is very different from other games, so that doesn't stop it being a game.
No. But what I'm saying is that because it's got that realism, because it's got that historicity, because it's got that activity happening while you are not there, and it's going to change whether you want it to or not. You cannot come back to the same game.
That is more or less a variable in most MMOs.
But not to this extent.
Sure, but I think that doesn't mean that Eve is more than a game in some sense. I think it is a game. I think it's an incredible game with a lot of stuff we don't see in other games. That brings me on to my other point: is you say CCP don't have an overriding philosophy of how to solve these problems. I think that's basically impossible. They have such a unique thing going on here that there isn't some holy text, there isn't some established best practices to solve all of their problems, because they are delving into new territory. It is a art as much as it is a science, possibly more so than in many other pieces of game design. Like if you look at the the newest GTA clone, kind of you're following certain fundamentals of what gameplay needs to be there, and no matter how shit you do, you kind of got a fundamental GTA clone, and based on all the games that have come before. And while Eve can draw inspiration from other games, it is so different that there is no best practices. There is no kind of like, this is the obvious solution because it worked in this other game, because Eve is so incredibly different. I think they have an overriding philosophy for tone. I think they have an overriding philosophy of what they hope to achieve, but I think the how they achieve it cannot have a specific, obviously you do this every time. And I think it undersells the scope and the difficulty of the job that CCP has to do. And I don't think that's a valid excuse for them to fuck up all the time for us not to call them out on it. But I think that it is not as simple as saying is that, oh, CCP obviously just have to do this because it's obvious and true. No, we are very much in new territory, and Eve has always been in brand new territory and breaking ground in the fields of, game design and economic systems and all that kind of stuff. So with what the kind of small team they have for such a big problem, like, I think they do a fairly reasonable job. I don't think they do a perfect job, and they've certainly had many issues, but I think that to go, oh well, it's obvious they should do this, oh they don't have a philosophy onto how they solve them, and that makes them really dumb, like, I think that in itself is kind of silly.
Oh, I don't disagree, and I'm not just CCP bashing. I'm just pointing out that sometimes it feels like they have lost track of how complicated their job actually is, and that they need to at least do a little bit more high perspective planning when you are dealing with a game that is this different from anything else in the world, right? And you can compare it to other MMOs, but there is still the whole difference in the fact that this game is 15 years old, and it's actually developed things and communities and all this in those 15 years. So it's fundamentally different than any other game out there. This is like the not safe game in the world. Some other
MMOs have that. I think some other MMOs have that to a lesser degree.
My point is that what is going to happen now, because I thought we should just segue a little bit out of this. What's going to happen now that we will get a huge potential influx of new blood to Eve, or at least to the CCP brands? Because I know that I am downloading Valkyrie, 26 days from now?
Yeah, man. Can't wait. Finally, no VR.
Dude,
no VR.
I'm so getting no VR Valkyrie.
Yep. So I don't have to, puke on my monitor. That'd be great.
I feel that as we are, an hour and a bit in, we may have beaten this horse to death several times. And I know you had another topic you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, actually, if I can, I'm so third party on this next topic, but I kind of want to discuss Snuff out joining Imperium. What does that mean for you guys? For me, in game, it means nothing to me. But what is that? What should people take away with when they hear that?
I think it means that both sides benefit. It means that Snuff gets to get involved in blob fights on a side. It means that Snuff has access to ratting space without having to pay a rental fee, and that's where the big money is made. So Snuff can make up a ton of money. And they're it's like, I always think of joining the Imperium, joining a big established group, which I certainly have. I'm a member of PL. It's a path of least resistance to do some stuff, right? It has its backsides, but it means you got an easy income source. It's doing whatever. Like, I always think of joining the Imperium or joining Horde or one of the super big powers as playing Eve with a lot of the difficulty sliders turned down, because it's this huge established group. So I think that Snuff have a lot to gain from there, and the Imperium have something to gain because it gives them a bunch of guys who are competent at things that the Imperium is historically very bad at. It means that they get a bunch of extra dudes in fights, which is something all large groups would like to see. It also means that whenever Snuff kills a Titan or kills a super, whenever they're doing stuff, like the Imperium can count that as a coalition victory, right? So currently, if Snuff fishes a Titan somewhere, yay, go Snuff, you did a thing. Now, if Snuff goes fishes a Titan, now it's a victory for the Imperium because they are a member of the Imperium. Right, so the CFC gets to take credit. Sorry, the Imperium gets to take credit for like whatever Snuff achieves. So I think that it is a beneficial agreement to both sides, and it makes sense. A lot of people have been saying as soon as big low-sec entities get access to renter space, they immediately go inactive and die, and that's yet to be seen. But I think that's the kind of the from my understanding, those are the in-game things. Like, both sides have something to gain. They have gone for it. It may have drawbacks, but the pros exist, and they've gone for them.
You forgot the media connection.
Well,
that was my next bit.
You asked about in-game, so I talked about the in-game.
Actually, I did have one other question.
I just know that you've been teasing Naiden a lot.
I know, man.
Oh, yeah, it's super fun.
I did have just one quick question concerning just the in-game piece. I mean, I'm a low sec dude. I've been a low sec dude like forever, since 2009. I really, like, to me, like, that's really where I live. Seeing and hearing large entities kind of, I'm not saying that Snuffed Out is gonna like just leave low sec. I don't think that's gonna happen. But does hearing about things like that, like very like high value names making kind of that transition to null sec proper, does that promote the idea that there's something wrong in low sec?
So there are multiple sides to this argument, and I know, for example, Reza disagrees with me on this. So like, there was an arms race in low sec a while ago, and like you've got big groups like Waffles and Snuff and Shadow Cartel, and to them they are kind of a big deal important low sec, and their play style is one of the main low sec play styles. But they're going, oh, Lowsec is dead. There's nothing happening in Lowsec anymore. Lowsec has a fundamental problem. Now, there's an argument that said that it's because Lowsec is a problem, and some people might say that's because, well, you just absorbed everyone into 3 major groups that all work together and have a bunch of Diplo going on, so no fights happen, and you also drop on any small groups that form and are kind of oppressive in that way. So there are kind of 2 sides to that argument. In my mind, having Snuff divert their attention away from Lowsec, having Waffles down in Provi divert their attention away from Lowsec, that gives space for smaller groups not at that power level to exist and to form and to have a more stuff coming out. Like if Snuff and Shadow Cartel and Waffles and all the big established Lowsec powers were just like not allowed to go into Lowsec space through gates or through silos, there was just like you're a member of this alliance, you're not allowed to go in. That would suck and be dumb, and you should never ever do that in the game. But it would mean that all the moons they currently control, all the spheres of influence they control, and will demolish fleets in, that is now open ground to other groups. Another way to look at this might be, so back before Phoebe, Snuff and Shadow Cartel, you could track where they would have their cap fights because it would be the opposite side to Lowsec from wherever PL was deployed, because it would be more effort for PL to jump 10 sinos to go and dick on them, right? So it's a smaller fish, bigger fish thing, where I hope it is the case that by Snuff having more of their attention on Null, Waffles being on this continuous deployment, Shadow Cartel, I don't know whether they're fail skating or they're joining someone else with nullsec ties, even if they're not leaving Lowsec, if more of their attention is away from Lowsec and they are less active in the Lowsec space, it will give space for the militias to grow. It will give space for new organizations to grow, give space for more players to do more things in that space outside the established powers. That is my hope of the effect of this.
I agree, man. Me too.
Couldn't it be also the other way around a bit, that with Snuff joining the Imperium, that the Imperium gets a better hold on Lowsec?
That would also make a lot of sense if Lowsec actually becomes more interesting.
Well, that is true. Maybe maybe the Imperium are expecting low sec to be more important to have influence on with the moon changes coming out in the mining. Maybe there will be, I don't know, low sec only minerals that they'll need to farm for their stuff. So maybe absorbing snuff gives them kind of a region of low sec that they can claim as Imperium Sov in inverted commas. Maybe that helps them in that way. Maybe that's what they're anticipating with the changes coming out, either just through having a list of plans or whether they know some secret info. Like, who knows? That's an entirely valid speculation, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I'm definitely hoping is going to be disclosed soon is whatever it was that had Aerith going whoop-de-doo and clapping his hands, because he called NDA when he was pitching it or presenting it on the Meta Show and said that he can't disclose any of that yet, but it's something really good.
Well, when it comes out, make sure you get him to tell you what it is. Say, hey, you know that thing you're really excited about? Has it come out yet?
Exactly, and I'm sure that you're going to hold him to it too. You have pulled a few things from that man.
I think I've been on 2 shows with Aerith. He seems like a pretty nice guy. Like, he very much enjoys role playing this big Machiavellian villain. But I've certainly enjoyed the two discussions I have had with him.
I just think that if both Jin and Aerith is pointing out that there's some really good things in the pipeline that we haven't even been privy to in any way, I'm becoming more hopeful. I know that there's the problems with Aegisov and all the other stuff, but if there's things that get them hype, I'm sure that Eve is not actually dying.
Well, remember that there's a CSM cycle, right? So they go to the summit, they chat to CCP, they get a lot of work done, they get to see all the shiny new things that are coming out soon, and they're really excited about the state of development of Eve, and they think, oh, Eve is so good, the next bunch of updates are going to be really awesome, they're really good, we worked really hard on giving feedback on them, oh, it's going to be so good, guys. And then the time scale inevitably goes from 6 months to a year to 2 years, and through the following 6 months, the CSM gets slowly more and more and more depressed until they're really close to writing Scion articles. And then another summit happens, and they're all super happy again. And that's not just this CSM. This is like the past however many CSMs to a varying degree. Like,
damn, that's a good
Jintan will
article.
back me up on this. So I absolutely will take their word that there's cool stuff coming through. In the same way that, you know, every time there's a summit, we hear that there's cool stuff coming through, usually. And usually there is cool stuff coming through. Like, there are good updates and good content that comes out for this game all the time, even though people who like bashing CCP tend to ignore it. You know, CCP make good steps as well as missteps sometimes. Shock, horror, amazing opinion. Try not to have a heart attack, apathetic nerds. But yeah, so good stuff is going to come out. This makes me happy. Good stuff has been coming out for a while. More good stuff is going to come out. Whether or not that addresses the immediate concerns of the community, maybe not. Whether or not they should be addressing the immediate concerns, maybe they are addressing those immediate concerns indirectly through other changes. Maybe the current issues are solved. Maybe the current issues have to exist for the next piece of content to come out, that the current state makes sense because they had to do this in order to get to the next thing. Like, we have to go through a period of suckiness to get through the good stuff. You can't just go from the old thing to the new thing immediately. Like, game development, we don't know anything, blah, blah, blah.
I do think that it's going to have a positive effect, that you will now have an alternative fallback. So when you start getting into that, I need an Eve break, you can easily sit around playing some Eve Valkyrie on PC, Master Race, and later when you feel like you've exhausted all that content, we should be getting some Project Nova.
One thing I want to say about this is I saw them at the show also, and what I saw both Aerith and Jintan do is temper your expectations that there are good things coming in the pipeline, but you shouldn't expect them too soon. And they were happy with certain things, but certain other things they were less impressed with. So I don't know. I have to see what's happening with that.
And one of the things I'd like to bring up, and this inevitably leads to the most toxic and awful arguments ever, especially on Reddit, is I want to look at the PCU graph from EVE Offline. And a lot of people kind of see the slope down from the introduction of alphas and are saying, EVE is dying in a year or two. However, if you look at the last, say, look like since the beginning of 2015, okay, I think that there's certainly been fluctuation in players, but whenever whenever we are on a down, whenever the PCU goes down, we kind of always hit this bedrock of about 30k. Like, no matter how steep the slope is, it always kind of levels out as soon as it hits 30k. And I think that there is kind of like this fundamental player base of EVE that no matter what's going on, they're just kind of playing EVE. They're just kind of things going over on like, and that's like a 30k number.
Yeah, from the game design, it's saturated. They have all the potential players that want to play EVE. No amount of marketing or anything is going to bring
that's not what I'm saying. That's
new
not what
blood.
I'm saying.
But that is kind of what's happening. They are saturated. There's no potential new players except for, of course,
I think
the
that
generational
you cannot make
totally
that
disagree.
with
I totally
any
disagree.
level of confidence
Yeah,
at all.
I totally disagree.
Think that saying that is a huge assumption based on no evidence, because you cannot have that evidence. You cannot know the minds and hearts of the next generation of human beings. Like, that's just not a thing you can do.
That was my caveat. I said, except for the new generation, because it's a generational
which is
game.
the marketplace. Like, every day, a person who has never heard of EVE might look at it and go, "Hey, this is cool." But my point is that, like, because we are kind of, it's somewhat related to what we're talking about. It's like we kind of hit this bedrock of 30k. So don't worry about EVE dying in the next year. Like, it might. I'm not saying it isn't going to happen, but when things start dropping down below like 30k is when I personally will be worried.
I think EVE is pretty okay place, like with people staying there, and it goes up and down. But you see a lot of activity lately in EVE. The big fights. There are a lot of big fights, or more than for my feeling, than a few years ago. So that's something that's at least there. You see, at least I see it with Karma Fleet and those kind of things. But you see it also in Pandemic Horde and all newbie groups. There are enough new people coming in and trying to play the game and having their fun. I think it's more people doing it for shorter stints or something like that. But there's still new players getting excited and getting there and wanting to play this game. And what I think that happens is that keeps a steady number. And then when there are exciting new things, or there's a big war happening or something else, the people who have been playing this for years starting to resubscribe again and starting to do those kind of things. So I think that makes it easier. And I hear a lot of also for players, even in our corp, that is like, oh, I'm taking a bit of an EVE break, but thanks to the alpha status, at least I have an ability to sometimes undock and stay in contact with people. So I think that's also a thing that really helps the game.
Yeah, I don't think we've even seen the beginning of the effect of the long-term influence of alphas. I still think it's way too null, and the value is going to come on the other side of this winter.
Yeah. All right, so kind of to transition from that merge, the media aspect of it. So I'm pretty oblivious to that as well, because I don't belong to either media entity. But to those in the know, what does that mean for us that like to consume EVE media?
I don't think it means that much. It's just kind of a pun and a joke on the fact that Naiden is now pretty much officially in the Imperium. So
Naiden is officially a goon pet.
Isn't
that great, everyone?
So that will mean that Crossing Zebras is now suffering from some sort of hostile takeover from Mitten's multimedia Death Star.
So there was a time where if you were in the CFC, and this was during the CFC days, that you could either be in the CFC or you could be a contributor to Crossing Zebras. You had to choose. This was not from CZ. CZ didn't give a shit. We wanted more Goon writers. But it was from the very top of Goon admin, from a guy whose name begins with S, that you had to choose. You could either be a member of an Imperium group, or you could write for CZ, and you could not have those two things. But in terms of like the developing media, in terms of how CZ operates, exactly zero is going to change, to be honest. Like, Naiden is not at his most active in the history of CZ. He's not at his least active in the history of CZ. And generally speaking, I don't see this. I just don't see Imperium having any sway in CZ, to be honest. Like I just don't see it. I can't imagine that happening. But further than that, I think Imperium, like claiming that this means Imperium's getting a greater hold of the media sphere, you're like 4 months too late. This does not affect Imperium's hold on the Mevosphere at all. Like CZ has been really fucking inactive for months. It's been a little bit more active in the last couple of days. Maybe that'll come back. And with the Imperium news really pushing up how much it pays and really promoting more writers, and they've been working really, really hard over there. I think that the Imperium News Network has been taking a much larger portion of the EVE media space based on its own work and based on the collapse of EVE News 24, rather than this semi-acquisition to the editor-in-chief of Crossing Zebras.
And it's done the opposite of what you just mentioned with the guy that begins with an S.
Crazy.
Right, they've expanded to be inclusive instead of exclusive, right?
Yeah.
So you can
Like,
even read articles that are critical.
Had a low key told, hey, you do know if you'd published that article on Imperium News, you would have got paid this much ISK. I've been told
billion.
that once or twice.
I'm pretty sure it's still 500 billion.
It scales up though, doesn't it?
Sorry, 500 million per article.
Yes, I've been offered over $1 billion for some.
Yeah, if it's very long researched articles, it's up to $1 billion.
All right, cool. Yeah, like I was totally blindsided by that news. By the way, I was like, I think I heard about that like yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think it ties into the fact that the EVE media needs to grow up, right?
But I think if without like Snuff and Imperium have been doing stuff together for a little while now, so I don't think it's out of the blue completely. But I think in terms of what you think about the culture of those two places, very different. Like the Imperium, like Matterall makes his defense of the Imperium all the time. Like you won't hear, Mitani ever doing racist or sexist slurs, and that is very much stamped out in many spheres of the Imperium. Not all of them, but in many of them. You can't be transphobic or whatever. Snuff is more toxic. Snuff comms are more toxic than PL comms, dude. Like that. I think that if they integrate at all, there may be some culture issues that will probably be expertly managed by Gunda guys. But I can see, when I saw it, I was like, "Huh, that's weird," and then I thought about it for like 2 or 3 minutes and went, "Oh wait, no, it does make sense."
I think they do the same thing as what Inet does. Inet is also a more member of the Imperium and does things, but is also more standing on itself than a lot of other alliances within the Imperium. And I think that will be the result of Snuff also. They're going to do their own thing, and when useful, they're working together, and they benefit both from being easier to talk to, blue standings, and easier to coordinate. I think that's the whole thing, what will happen with it.
I'll see, man. I mean, as a low sec dude, just hearing that makes me feel like, oh, I can actually do more proper solo rooms in low sec now. You got people that are kind of potentially leaving the space, so kind of like what Apotheme was talking about, leaving the space to allow for other players, other entities to develop, which has been sorely needed, to be honest. I mean, that kind of development had to come from the player end. I don't think CCP could have done anything to improve LowSec to kind of coax that into existence. I don't think.
I would not expect Snuff to leave LowSec myself. What I understand of it, I don't know that much about it, and I'm totally not involved how this all works. But what I hear is Snuff has their PvP alts in their main alliance and has PvP alts being in nullsec in Renter Corps or in wormholes, etc., where they make their risk. That's at least a bit what I understand, and of course some level 5 missions.
That's pretty common in most PvP-centric alliances. You have your PvP mains and your PvP characters in your alliance, and then how you make your ISK is your problem. Like, there are a bunch of internal groups that will like rent out certain space. There might be a group of friends that have a wormhole with alts in that they make money that way. But there's a separation of church and state in terms of your PvP and your PvE, and then things get more complicated if you're an empire builder, where that ties more together. Like on in the Imperium, for example, you have your PvP characters and goons, and you have your PvE characters and goons. Some of them maybe even be the same. Again, I'm not an expert on this. Never been in like a big null group, goons or otherwise. In that sense, that is a more empire focused thing. But yeah, so it's common practice. I think that this instead of means that Snuff suddenly have access to null PV space where they didn't before. I think it's just massively simplified the process and has given them access to very high security, very high value space. And I'm assuming they don't have to pay rental fees.
No. So what I think what might happen is that maybe either they're making an alt alliance or in their alliance more PvE characters come use the space in Delph and Aquarius that is there. But I don't see their main PvP characters moving the place they are and changing the playstyle they love, because I think that would be I think that will not fit Snuffbox, and that also doesn't fit the players who fly with Snuffbox. So
yeah, we'll see how it develops, but it's exciting, to be honest.
One of the things I find interesting is that Snuff have a history of not holding agreements. Like, generally speaking, you can't really take Snuff's word relative to other places. So I foresee drama. Like, I don't know where it's gonna happen. I don't know when it's gonna happen. But my spidey sense for drama is just tingling here.
we will see what happens, and I think we have a lot of people very experienced with drama within the Imperium and how to deal with it. So
It's not going to be boring, that's for sure.
Nope, I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
And that's good. Boring game, having boring things is not good for the game. So I love getting changes and people shake things up. So yeah.
We're definitely out of the summer slump.
Yeah, thank God. Oh my God, that was too long. Can't do that again, guys. Come on, can't do that again.
What are you talking about? The summer was amazing.
Yeah, we had the AT. We had our chisel going north with Imperium, and for like a few weeks doing things there, and then cleaning up Delve afterwards. And I see that people still need to clean up a bit in the north with stuff in Hakonen still being alive, etc. So I think it has been a pretty active summer for some other. I have had less active summers in.
That's true, but we did have 2 weeks or something like that where it was kind of slow, and we thought that it was going to be very dead. But then the Northern Kerfuffle happened and the AT, so we were very entertained. This year's AT was amazing.
I think 2 weeks a bit slower in a year during the summer is not that bad.
No, I agree. It was just very slow, and I thought that it was going to last forever.
Yeah, we'll see. That was an odd one. It was like super hyped, but then not a whole lot happened. Then it died. Yeah,
Let's see.
Yeah, but I don't really have anything else. I think can touch on real quick about the alpha ships being rebalanced. It's not a lot of solid word on what they're going to be balanced into, but definitely something that's been. I was kind of surprised it took them this long to do it, but I'm glad they are.
Yeah, we have a lot of numbers to crunch and a lot of information to go through on the CCs very soon.
Yep, definitely.
I hope with a rebalance, because I have, for my idea, CCP never have really marketed the alpha player thing. They have done it a bit, but not that big. So I hope with those changes they do for alphas now, with rebalancing those ships classes they can fly, they might also make a good PR effort out of it and see if we get people back in the game who come back as an alpha player, or people trying the game new. I hope that will something that they put effort in.
I also think that now they're talking about the fact that there's no balanced team dedicated in CCP at the moment, but it ties into the whole thing of I think what was hinted at in Brett Gintan and Aerith, that some of the choices that CCP seems to make right now, I think it's very much focused on the other brands and rolling them out and then benefiting from the cross-pollination. And that might actually open the big wallet. I think they have something like 100 million or something dollars available, and that is most likely going to be used to hire a lot of new people for the different teams.
That'd be great, honestly. I mean,
yeah, but you don't want to start hiring crazy until you see that the strategy is working.
Yeah, of course. Hopefully. All right, but I think we're running on an hour and a half here, just a bit over. I don't really have anything else. This was it's a great comeback show, that's for sure.
Apparently, just on Reddit, is Horde is going to deploy to Curse and shoot a lot of people.
In Curse, really? The fuck.
We are certainly at kerfuffle level for the South situation. We're not at war yet. We're not at full war, but we have ascended past kerfuffle, which is exciting.
We're kerfuffle 3.
And I'm glad that we, as a GSF, are sitting back and just shooting whoever we want to shoot and not getting involved already. So that's something fun for us. I love being able to bomb everybody who's on grid.
My prediction of a clusterfuck war seems to be pushed a little bit out into the future, because if we're still only on kerfuffle, then it's going to take a little bit until we actually start seeing some proper wars, and until then that whole thing escalates into the big clusterfuck exploding blue donut.
We shall see. All right, but I think we'll cut it right here. I think we covered a lot of stuff. Covered a lot of nullsec-oriented topics from the get-go, and then we were able to cover most of the items in the update, so that's good. And the big mergers.
And we apologize for the lack of market content.
Oh, it's coming. Dude, everything's like, to be honest though, like a quick thing on that one. I'm not sure what you see, Caleb, on your end, but for my end, dude, a lot of things are moving sideways. It's like they're waiting.
Next episode.
Yep, next episode for sure. Awesome. Well, let's go around the horn for shout outs if you have them. Let's start with Apothony.
Shout outs to my girlfriend, because it's her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yay!
She is coming back to Birmingham tomorrow, so we're gonna get to hang out a whole bunch. She lives with me, but she's been on a holiday with family for a week, so I'm looking forward to having her back. So shout out to my girlfriend. Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. How about you, Apple Pear?
Oh, shoutouts. I never do shoutouts mostly, but let's do a shout out to our new friends in Imperium Snuff.
Nice.
Go on.
Yep. How about you, Caleb? Got anything?
I have a special shout out to Snuff Naiden, and welcome to the dark side. And to everyone that's actually watching this now or later. I hope to see you guys and be able to shoot you in Valkyrie in about a month.
Yes, definitely. Shout out. Thank you, CCP, for bringing Valkyrie out of the VR zone.
Indeed.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because I wasn't about to buy gear for that. I'm sorry.
I did not see that coming. I am so grateful. I'm going to play that so much.
Yep. Totally into it. Yeah. Shout outs to. Looking forward to more CCP products being available for greater consumption. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for being here, guys. We'll see how now that we're kind of working our way out of the summer slump. We'll see what kind of cadence we can have for this show, as far as what we can bring you guys and create discussions and whatnot. So that's it. I think we'll cut it right there. Thanks for our guests. Thanks for our viewers, and we'll get this to YouTube here today for sure, and I'll link it out to the social medias once it's done uploading. All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.